Hello and welcome to the Jerry Hicks Show, exclusively on the Censored Freedom Network. Now, the man that thought MAGA extremism was a new part of the X Games, your host, Jerry Hicks.
Thank you so much, Dave, and thank you, everybody, for being here on this Friday, March the 21st, 2025. We appreciate you all being along for the ride. I am your host, Jerry Hicks. We've got a lot of fun stories to get into tonight, ladies and gentlemen. You heard that right. This is going to be probably one of the most hilarious shows that I've done so far. We've got the left eating itself. We've got update on the judge that is trying to make himself president, and we've got an update on the Doge report. That's right, folks, a lot of information to get to and a little time to get there. But first, real quick shout out to everybody listening, whether you are on X, YouTube, Rumble, or BitChute. We appreciate having all of you guys along for the ride. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, follow, whatever it is on whatever platform you may be on. Before we hop into the news rack today, folks, I seen an article earlier today that said Elon Musk has earned back the $44 billion that he paid for X. In such doing, he has made it to the evaluation of which he paid for it, right? Oh, that's awesome, except for the fact that he made all of that money off X by charging you for free speech and punishing anyone that tries to build a channel without paying him. Because, you know, the richest man in the world needs your money. Don't forget that, ladies and gentlemen. Free speech on X is a lie. It is not free. With that said, folks, let's hop on over to our news desk and see what we have going on. Very sad breaking story, ladies and gentlemen. Boxing legend George Foreman, unfortunately, has passed away at age 76. An icon the man was. Boxing legend George Foreman has passed away at 76. His family has announced Big George, a two-time heavyweight champion, participated in some of the most important boxing events of all time. Foreman burst onto the scene in 1968, a long time ago, at the Summer Olympics in Mexico City, where he won a gold medal. Shortly after the games, George turned pro in 1973. Foreman defeated the undefeated heavyweight champ Joe Frazier, securing his first title just years into his professional career. After defending the belt twice, George, 25 years old and unbeaten, faced Muhammad Ali in 1974, one of the most memorable boxing matches ever, called the Rumble in the Jungle. It does not list the cause, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure this will be a developing story as the weekend continues. But sad news, George Foreman has passed away. Now, I promised you guys a fun show, and a fun show we shall have. Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock, you would think would learn not to lie, being, a reverend. However, that word in front of your name doesn't make you any more truthful. As we see here, he says, Doge closed 5 Social Security offices in Georgia a couple weeks ago. Now they're telling Georgia seniors they can't use the phone to claim benefits either. Let's call this what it is. An intentional attempt to stop folks from claiming benefits they've earned. I will fight this. The problem is, none of that's true. We know what they did with the phone service the other day. They didn't shut that off. They actually fixed the phone service to where it works better. Now they're claiming that 5 Social Security offices were closed. The problem is, they were not. The post is inaccurate, according to Doge. They are not closing any field offices in Georgia or elsewhere. The confusion likely arises from the closure of 5 permanent remote hearing sites, single rooms within field sites used for hearing. So the field sites are open. One room within this site is being used for something other than hearings now because it was a waste of time to have it for that. Since most hearings are now virtual, these PRSs are unnecessary. Field sites remain open, and Social Security has no plans to close any public-facing sites nationwide. So Raphael Warnock, the Reverend, is a liar. That word in front of his name does not give him any more credit at all. As a matter of fact, I'm starting to wonder if it gives him less credit at this point. Contract update coming from Doge today, and this was yesterday. Agencies terminated 105 contracts with a ceiling value of $935 million. and $580 million in savings, including a $1.3 million National Science Foundation consulting contract for, and I quote, fitness center services. $1.3 million for fitness centers. What kind of fitness center were they running over there? Good grief. Did they have a full-size gym or something? I don't understand. Well, they don't know more. Says the IRS has transaction volume of a mid-sized bank running similar infrastructure. Those banks typically have an operations and maintenance budget of $20 million a year. The IRS has a budget of $3.5 million, which does not include an additional $3.7 modernization budget. 80% of that O&M budget goes to contractors, and here is how it's done coming from.
All right. Well, you've heard the sob stories, and they are quite entertaining at times. But the media, they continue to spread this story that DOGE is some dark, mysterious organization, embedding itself in departments like some jackbooted thugs, just intimidating staff, threatening those that don't comply. Okay. We're asking, what is the truth? Well, tonight we sit down exclusively with one of the men responsible for turning Elon Musk's Doge plans into reality. Joining me now is Sam Korkos, who's especially...
And I want to be clear, I totally support Doge and what Elon is doing with this. I just don't support him hiding free speech on his platform.
...advisor within the U.S. Treasury Department. He's also CEO and co-founder of Levels, which is a really cool health and wellness software company.
Okay, so she didn't get to what I wanted her to get to, so we'll just go through this. There's a pattern across all agencies where IT modernization contracts do not pay for outcomes and performance. Instead, they pay for time. Therefore, the incentive is for contractors to never finish, resulting in incredible waste. As an example, IRS modernization started in 1990 to be delivered in 1996. Today, the work still is not complete, and contractors say it could still be 5 years away. 29 years behind schedule and $15 billion over budget. Everyone loses except the government contractors. This must change. This week, the IRS froze $1.5 billion in modernization contracts, none of which have any effect on tax filings. All of those contracts will then either be canceled or the contract terms will be changed to pay for performance, not time. As should be. Another way they were ripping off the system very, very easily. Next up, from Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida. For years, Florida has been trying to return federal funds to the federal government due to the ideological strings attached by the Biden administration, but they couldn't even figure out how to accept it. Today, I met with Musk and the Doge team, and we got this done in the same day. Other states should follow Florida in supporting Doge's efforts. Absolutely. What Doge is doing is absolutely amazing. Saving the taxpayer money. Saving all of us money in this country. Putting it back towards our deficit. Finding out where the waste and the fraud actually is. And he's not taking your money, ladies and gentlemen. He's stealing your money on X, not on Doge. He's already got schemes set up to steal your money elsewhere. He don't need Doge to do that. Eliminated their unused purchasing cards. Good work by NASA this week. They eliminated their unused purchasing cards, terminated $420 million, if you know, you know, in unneeded contracts, including $45 million, $15 million each, to 3 separate consultants, all for change management support services, which sounds like a fancy way of saying a reason to waste money. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. That is our Doge update. And to carry on from our Doge update, we have an update from the Small Business Administrator, Kelly Loeffler.
I'm Kelly Loeffler, Administrator of the U.S. Small Business Administration. In my first message from the SBA, you saw what I encountered when I first arrived in Washington. Rows of empty desks sitting in multi-million-dollar office buildings. Thousands of work-from-home staff collecting an average salary in excess of $134,000. That's more than double the national average wage. But the waste, inefficiency, and mismanagement go much deeper. Since the pandemic, the SBA has doubled its workforce, expanding in size, scope, and spending with miserable results. Instead of reducing the workforce after the pandemic, the last administration deployed the full force of this agency to advance a new partisan agenda, from Green New Deal lending programs to DEI contracting. Predictably, the SBA's services suffered. For 4 full years, the agency failed to pass an audit. Our largest loan program, which should operate at zero cost to taxpayers, saw negative cash flow for the first time in over a decade. Meanwhile, they refuse to investigate or prosecute more than $200 billion in pandemic-era fraud that is still to this day owed to American taxpayers. That's why change is coming to the SBA. The SBA is getting back to work. It needs to get back to our founding mission of empowering America's job creators. This agency is done wasting millions of tax dollars to fund a progressive pandemic-era bureaucracy. We will not allow fiscal mismanagement to threaten our loan programs or criminals to get away with fraud. But we will evaluate every program and expenditure, and we will right-size the agency to transform the SBA into a high-efficiency engine for America's entrepreneurs and taxpayers. As administrator, I'm committed to restoring the SBA's mission of promoting America's small businesses with accountability and results. Because when we restore our mission, we will also restore the historic prosperity that lifted up millions of small businesses during President Trump's first term. In short, we will make Main Street great again.
So by corrupting the Small Business Administration, like the Biden administration had done, it's a good way to ensure that small businesses fail and corporations have the ability to take over completely, right? Thank God for President Trump and the MAGA movement. Thank God for Kelly Loeffler cutting 43% of the small business workforce that is doing nothing but wasting money. And again, folks, I promised you guys a funny show. Let the comedy begin. Representative Mike Lawler was on CNN, I guess yesterday or today at some point, and well, I'm going to let him speak for himself here. We've actually got it pulled up already, I thought. Yes, we do.
What the general public sees is a Democratic Party that is more interested in defending people like Mahmoud Khalil than they are victims of crime here in New York City, than they are Jewish students who have been subjected to vile anti-Semitism across these college campuses and universities, or than they did seeing Democrats refuse to stand for a 13-year-old boy who's suffering from cancer who was made a Secret Service agent. That's what the juxtaposition is right now. That's what the American people are seeing. And they're looking at it and they're going, these people are out of their minds.
I got to leave it there, but I just want to point out, I mean, no one is supporting the harassment of Jewish students.
Yes, they are.
No.
Respectfully, yes, they are.
What else are you cheering for? When you march in the street?
Hang on a second.
I have gone to these protests.
Let me be clear. I'm talking about here at this table.
Of course not.
Okay?
No
one
they charged
no one at
mosques
this
and they
table
protected Jewish
supports
students.
that.
Yeah, except
or
they failed
violence
to move
or anything
forward
like
on
that.
numerous instances of anti-Semitism
But I
that
do
we saw
think,
all across the country. And Chuck Schumer refused to
Congressman,
move forward with the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act.
Just give me a second here.
We'll get to Schumer again here in just a moment, but I think she lost control of her panel. What do you guys think? When Lawler, what's his name, Lawler?
What the general public?
Yeah, Lawler starts spitting truth. Nobody wanted to hear that, right? And he's absolutely right. The Democrats are digging themselves into a hole. All they're doing is showing their hatred and their prejudice against the American people. They back terrorists, they back immigrants, they back anything but the American people. Remember, they refused to acknowledge the boy with cancer. They refused to acknowledge fellow Americans who lost their family. They refused to acknowledge anything good for this country. What did they acknowledge? Taking our money and putting it in another country for a war we have no business being in. The Democrats hate you, hate this country, and are terrorists. And to see them being called out, ladies and gentlemen, I think is absolutely hilarious. But wait, there's more. Remember Tim Waltz, Tampon Tim, the one that The one that really, really made an idiot of himself the whole time during the campaign season. Well, apparently he's got some brave words, just like Biden did about Trump supporters.
I think I could kick most of their ass.
Oh boy, he'd be in trouble.
Is there any way to know?
Well, he's a loser. Yeah, I mean, he's a loser. He lost an election. He played a part. You know, usually a vice president doesn't play a part, they say. I think Tim played a part. I think he was so bad that he hurt her. But she hurt herself, and Joe hurt them both. They didn't have a great group, but I would probably put him at the bottom of the group.
Have you heard that Biden wants to get back involved for quote?
So Tim Walz said he could kick Trump supporters' asses. And Trump said, I think he'd be in trouble. Ladies and gentlemen, I think he'd be in huge trouble because there's a whole lot of us, and some of us are some pretty big old boys. Maybe not myself, but some of us are. But yeah, poor Tampon Tim, who thinks boys can be girls and has no idea what the hell he's talking about, thinks he can kick Trump support. Does he think we're the ones with the blue hair? Is that what somebody's told him? I'm really confused here. But again, we see the Democrats going straight to violence. That's all they know how to do is go straight to violence and then accuse the other side of being violent. The other side, us here on the right side, we're not the ones burning Teslas. We're not the ones smearing feces on Teslas and keying people's cars, right? A year or two ago, buying a Tesla was a status of how leftist you were, right? How you're virtue signaling that you care for the environment. But now that he did something that you guys don't like, well, now Teslas are trash. They're garbage. They must be destroyed. How dare anybody support him? How dare. These people are violent. Setting fires, destroying businesses. I disagree with what Elon Musk is doing with X, but you would never see me out here pulling domestic terrorism, ladies and gentlemen. But Tim Walz, straight to violence, he said he could kick Trump supporters' asses. I would like to pay for a ticket to that match. I bet that would be worth it. So, ladies and gentlemen, speaking of crazy Kamala, Trump revokes security clearance of Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris, and the radical leftist cabal. I told you guys this would be a funny episode. Oh, this is hilarious if you ask me, folks. I have determined that it is in no longer the national interest for the following individuals to access classified information, the president stated, before laying out a laundry list of names that conservatives have long identified as threats to national security and common sense governance. So let's go one by one. We have Anthony Blinken, ladies and gentlemen, Jake Sullivan, Lisa Monaco, Mark Zaid, a lawyer, Norm Eisen. This is the guy that has been behind every single one of the false trials and everything that's been done, the impeachments, everything to try to bring down Trump. Most of it, I won't say all of it, most of it has been financed and founded by this insane idiot right here, Norm Eisen, who's just now lost his security clearance. Letitia James lost it. Alvin Bragg, Andrew Weissman. Hillary Clinton has lost her security access, ladies and gentlemen, along with Elizabeth Cheney, Kamala Harris, Adam Kinzinger, Fiona Hill, Alexander Vindman, Joseph R. Biden Jr., and any other member of Joseph R. Biden Jr.'s family. Full stop. Says, therefore, I hereby direct every executive department and agency head to take all additional action as necessary and consistent with existing law to revoke any active security clearances held by the aforementioned individuals and immediately rescind their access to classified information. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to hurt the cabal very, very badly. I think this is probably the funniest story I've seen in a very long time. Now you guys see what I mean about this going to be a hilarious show, and that it is. I think this is probably one of the best things I've seen in a while, like I said. Moving on, Judge Boasberg, the guy who wants to usurp the power of presidency and install himself instead, he's decided The other day he said, you have till Wednesday to supply this information. Wednesday came and went, and he said the information supplied is woefully insufficient, and you better not defy my order again, and then gave another order. Said defendant shall submit a sworn declaration by a person direct involvement in the cabinet level discussions regarding invocation of state secrets privilege. You're not a part of the government, bud. You weren't voted in. You weren't placed there by Trump. You also are trying to rule on something that has no position ability to be ruled on. What you're doing is wasting paper and time and trying to act like you actually are doing something for the country when you are not, especially considering we know that his daughter works for a 501c3 directly connected to these immigrants that he's trying to have pulled back in this country. I wonder who's making money off of this. Even the other day he said that Trump should have known that he would go against him because of his daughter. He admits to it, ladies and gentlemen. This guy needs to be disbarred immediately and all security clearances revoked. Marjorie Taylor Greene demands FDA pull approval of dodgy COVID vaccines causing permanent harm and death. Talk about winning, ladies and gentlemen. We are winning so hard right now. Let's hop over here to X to her actual post. I know we keep going to X, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not the one who keeps posting this stuff on X. It's not my fault. That's where the stories are. FDA approval for COVID-19 vaccines need to be pulled, and they need to be taken off the childhood vaccine schedule ASAP. I couldn't agree more. COVID-19 vaccines are causing permanent harm and deaths, not to count that they're absolutely an experimental vaccine. I've been saying this ever since they were created. My personal Twitter account was permanently banned for my outspoken stance against the vaccines until Elon Musk bought Twitter, changed it to X, and restored my account along with thousands of others who were censored and silenced. Yeah, he just found a different way to silence them. Now you only get silenced if you don't give him money, because the richest man in the world needs your money. The truth remains the same. COVID-19 vaccines should never receive approval, and they've known the entire time how bad the side effects and deaths are caused by them. It's time to do the right thing, stop the COVID-19 vaccines. Ladies and gentlemen, I say this every time this is brought up, and I'm going to say it again. Why? Because it is important. Where am I at? Here I am. Folks, not a single person who has taken a COVID vaccine has been given it legally. You see, to be given a vaccine legally, you have to be given the information about the side effects, long-term and short. This is called informed consent, and it is necessity for you to accept anything. You must be informed of what the effects are, what the damages could be. The problem is that this is experimental, and we do not have the long-term data. Period. We don't have the long-term data. There's nothing to be had. We haven't made it there yet. We barely are getting short-term data now. The end of the short term is just starting to come to fruition now. We're just learning what the short-term effects are of this horrible vaccine. This was an experiment, and none of this was given legally with informed consent, because it is physically impossible to have given informed consent because we don't have that data yet. We haven't had enough time since the first injections to have gained that data yet. These should have never been made mandatory. They should have never tried to push this on the entire population. This is very, very close to home for me. This touches a nerve with me, and you guys know it. Because I gave up the silver spoon. I gave up everything I had because of these mandates. Because I refused to get these jabs, which forced me to have to wear a mask. And when that became a non-uniform thing and started being used discriminatorily because you wouldn't get a jab, is when I lost everything, because I refused to be discriminated against. And I don't tell you that to brag. I'm proud of what I've done. But I don't tell you that to brag. I tell you that to understand why I get passionate when I hear about stuff like this. Because I got some skin in this game. Big time. These are killing people. there's no way that these should have been allowed, let alone forced upon the American people. Your job should not have been threatened because of these vaccines. So what's so funny about this? The funny part is it's finally being called for removal, and you can guess with RFK Jr. at the wheel that this is a very good likelihood that this is going to happen. So Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm right behind you. I don't care what they say about you. I know you're a little bit crazy, but that's what I think is so cool about you. Yes, these need to be absolutely removed. Y'all want to hear a little screw up from AOC, ladies and gentlemen? Bless her little heart. I got to say, in her defense, this was legit a foul up of words, right? I could see myself easily making this mistake. I want to be very clear about this. We'll hop back over to the newsstand. But it is still pretty funny. Check this out.
We need a Democratic Party that fights harder.
Fights harder.
For us to. We need a Democratic Party that fights harder for.
She knew she messed up, too. A Democrat Party that farts harder. Yes, you do, AOC. I don't think they could stink bad enough as is. Obama judge pushes back after ruling attacking Doge is so weirdly written. So, the hell with the headline. Here's what happened. U.S. District Judge Ellen Hollander, an Obama appointee, said Doge's workers are on a fishing expedition. Says the Doge team is essentially engaged in a fishing expedition at the Social Security Administration. Yeah, because they found quite a bit. They've caught quite a bit of big whales over there so far. In search of a fraud epidemic, which it is, based on little more than suspicion. No, we've got a lot of evidence. It has launched a search for the proverbial needle in a haystack without any concrete knowledge that the needle is actually in the haystack. There's a lot of needles in that haystack. Far-left organizer AFL-CIO, the American Federation of Teachers, and other plaintiffs sued the Social Security, trying to stop from finding the waste and fraud. The judge sided with the plaintiff on Friday. Acting Social Security Commissioner Leland Dudek told Washington Post in an interview that he will likely just file an affidavit asking the judge to clarify her ruling, calling the language ambiguous and overbroad. In an interview Friday, he argued that the judge's ruling was overly broad and a reference to Doge affiliates could apply to all employees who access personal identification because they're obligated to cooperate with Doge. Everything in the agency is. Unless I get clarification, I'll just have to start shutting it down. I don't have much of a choice. To which the judge quickly took back to clarify her comments. And the clarification, ladies and gentlemen, is very telling. Check this out. The court is aware of several news reports claiming the active Social Security Commissioner Dudek believes, and I hope I'm saying his name right, believes that virtually all employees of SSA fall within the scope of the order, including his IT staff and anti-fraud team. And according to the news report, Dudek apparently believes he's required to terminate their access to the IT systems in order to comply with the order. The judge continued, such assertions about the scope of the order are inaccurate. Employees who are not involved with Doge or working with the Doge team are not subject to the order, so they just want Doge shut down, ladies and gentlemen. This makes it very clear. They're specifically trying to stop Doge from doing what the American people want them to do. But I think it's hilarious he took her to her word, and she had to jump back and step in and say, no, what I meant is just Doge. A Doge affiliate is defined in this order as a person working on or implementing the Doge agenda. So they don't want Doge to be able to do what they're doing, even though they are already a government agency that was already created and formed under the Obama administration that was just given new birth or new life by Trump to clean out what is equally fraud and waste in our government. And lo and behold, you've got these activist judges, once again, that think they have the ability to step in and say, no, you can't do your job because we're not going to allow it. I'd put money that this piece of trash is on the Soros payroll and she needs to be disbarred from office. Speaking of Soros comes for Schumer, ladies and gentlemen. The left is eating itself. I told you this would be a funny episode, and it's only getting funnier. So, I said in the beginning, ladies and gentlemen, of Trump's presidency, way back in 2016, I said this was never, ever about Trump and Hillary. It wasn't. Who was it about? This was between Trump and Soros. That's who the battle was between in 16. That's who the battle was between in 20. And that's who the battle was between in 24. It's never been Trump and Biden or Trump and Hillary and Trump or whatever face they've put up there for the shadow puppet to be. It's always been Soros behind the scenes. I've said it a million times, and I don't care if people agree with me or not. Oh, there's people above him. No, I don't believe that. Soros is one of the tops. He's one of the ones pulling the strings. To believe somebody's above him is to believe that he's innocent, and ladies and gentlemen, I can't believe that for a half of a second. He's made it very clear what his intentions are, and now he's made it even more clear. An activist group backed by progressive financier George Soros called on Senate leader Chuck Schumer to step down. Schumer received criticism within his own coalition for allowing the Republican bill to fund the federal government, including from Indivisible, a nationwide activist network that has taken over $7.6 million from the Open Society Foundation. They are also the ones that we reported on the other day, ladies and gentlemen, that are behind this ring of Elon dealership domestic terrorism, basically. They are the ones forwarding the domestic terrorism. George Soros's group is clearly behind this. And I said this before. Said the authoritarians are stripping away our rights and trying to loot the government to enrich the billionaires are a five-alarm fire. Indivisibles across the country have been organizing to furiously fight back. That's where they want to focus. Yesterday, Chuck Schumer gravely undermined our work. Well, ladies and gentlemen, their work is going to land them in prison because we now know who they are. They need to go ahead and arrest old Levin. Can somebody go ahead and report this guy to the proper authorities? Not the swatters. We're not the left. Go ahead and report him to, Patel and the proper authorities. Probably somebody who pays for X. You could probably do it over there, right? Because then you'll actually be able to be heard. And last but not least, one of the funniest stories, probably the second funniest story of the night. Of course, the first funniest is the fact that Hillary Clinton's security clearance is now pulled. So Bill Maher is going to visit the White House to meet President Trump. I'm not a fan of Bill Maher. Bill Maher has been very hard left. However, recently Bill Maher has been calling out the woke bullshit of the left. And I have a feeling that the left is about to completely turn on this man. Kid Rock sat down with him on a show and he said, I want you to come meet President Trump. I'm going to bring you to the White House. And apparently that's what's going to happen. The left is already turning on him, ladies and gentlemen. Looks like a weird leftist here over on Twitter. There's a lot of those. Says, hey, Bill Maher, how do you think Carlin would feel about you normalizing and mingling with a dictator? He's meaning Trump, not Putin. So you're already wrong about your whole thing. It sounds retarded. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, Bill Maher is going to meet Trump. I don't know when this is going to happen. I'm not sure that it actually lists that in here, but he is set to meet Trump at some point soon, apparently. So that ought to be very interesting to see just how badly the left turns on this man the moment he sits down to enjoy a meal with the actual president of the United States and have what would probably equate to a decent conversation instead of screaming, yelling, and burning stuff to the ground like the Democrat terrorists actually like to do. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys have enjoyed this hilarious episode of The Jerry Hicks Show. We will be back again on Sunday with Censored Freedom with Chris Spivey. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, remember, stay awake, but dare to dream. Stand strong, patriots. Good night, everybody.